I'm going to show you how to knit this honeycomb slip stitch. I really love this stitch because it really looks like a more complex pattern than it actually is. It looks like a proper honeycomb, which is normally a lot more complex, whereas this is actually just a really simple slip stitch. And the front side, you can see where the texture is created, that's where the floats are. And normally with slip stitches, floats sit at the back of the work. But for this one, the floats are actually what creates the honeycomb texture. So I think it's a really clever use of really simple stitches to create a really exaggerated surface texture. So I'll show you how to make this. So to begin, you're going to cast on an odd number of stitches using the cable cast on. You can use any cast on, but I'm just using this because when I finish the cast on, the first row will be a right side row. So the cable cast on allows for that first row to be a right side row, which is what I want for this. I'm using 8mm needles and a chunky weight yarn. I quite like the way the texture is exaggerated by using this chunkier yarn for this stitch, but obviously you can use any needles and any yarn that you like. Once you've cast on an odd number of stitches, the first row is a right side row, and I'm going to work an edge stitch, so I'm going to just slip the first stitch purlwise with the yarn at the back, and then the first row is just knit all the stitches. So just going to knit every single stitch. So for row 2, I'm going to slip the first stitch purlwise because that's my edge stitch, and then I'm going to knit the first stitch. Now I'm going to slip the next stitch with the yarn at the back of the work. So you're going to always slip the stitch purlwise, but for this I'm going to keep the yarn at the back of the work here. So I'm going to slip the next stitch purlwise onto the right needle like that, and then simply knit the next stitch, and that's the sequence. So you're going to slip the next stitch with the yarn at the back of the work, and then knit the next stitch, and keep repeating that across the whole row. And it's slipping the stitch with the yarn at the back of the work that creates the floats that create the texture on the front. And then when you get to the last stitch, I'm just going to purl this stitch because it's my edge stitch. For row 3, I'm going to slip the first stitch purlwise, which is my edge stitch, and then again I'm going to knit all the stitches. So for this pattern, all the right side rows, you're just going to knit the whole row. And it's a 4-row repeat, so 2 of those rows are just knitting. So every right side row, you just knit all the stitches. So for row 4, you're going to slip the first stitch purlwise because this is my edge stitch, keeping the yarn in the front, and then you're going to take the yarn to the back because the second stitch is going to be slipped purlwise with the yarn in the back. So I've got my yarn in the back, and then I'm going to slip this stitch purlwise onto the right needle, and then the next stitch I'm just going to knit, and then that's the sequence. Slip the stitch purlwise with the yarn in the back, and then knit the stitch. And that's exactly the same as the second row, but the stitches are a slightly different formation. and then you can see when you turn it around that you've got these floats starting to appear on the work, and you can see where they're sitting like this creates this honeycomb texture. So that is literally the 4-row repeat. So you just continue repeating those 4 rows and it will build up just like this one has into this lovely texture.